if you had to guess, is the least popular NBA coach of all time? If you give an answer to anyone other than George Karl, you are wrong. He has probably the most disliked coach in NBA history. That's not a hyperbole. That is fact. Do not take my word for it. Ask our guy, J.R. Smith. This is what he had to say about his time playing in Denver. He said, how do I put this? George Karl wasn't the coach I thought he was. When I first got there, I'm thinking he's a player's coach. I didn't even know him. By the time I was gone, I was like, if I never see this dude again, I am good. There are certain people you vibe with and certain people you don't. I get that. But then there are certain people who just throw salt into the pot just because they want to. You know what I'm saying? Just to see what the outcome is. I don't like stuff like that. I feel a lot of what DeMarcus and a lot of other players are saying. He's not the easiest person to deal with. There's many players other than J.R. Smith that have decided to come over the top rope on George Karl. DeMarcus Cousins, of course, long-running beef with George Karl. He tweeted out in response to Cousins taking shots at the Kings organization by asking what DeMarcus Cousins ever did for them. They paid you $50 million and gave you the opportunity to play professional basketball. Sir, George Karl, do you know that DeMarcus Cousins at one point was one of the most dominant big men in the game? Everyone wanted DeMarcus Cousins. They didn't give him an opportunity to play fucking basketball. I hate to tell you, George Karl, a whole lot of other teams would have been happy to pay Boogie Cousins as well. Don't act like Sacramento did some sort of favor to DeMarcus Cousins. He had 7 coaches in 7 years there. And of course, DeMarcus Cousins, who is great. I love him. Boogie. He tweeted a snake emoji as his description of George Karl. So he seems to be beefing with everyone, George Karl. He said also, Doc Rivers, we talked about this before 2 weeks ago, that Doc Rivers had been anointed as a black coach. And now there's going to be 4 or 5 more anointments of the young Afro-American coach. Don't say Afro-American. Please don't. That's cringe. Don't do that. As if that's some sort of bad thing for coaches, I don't know, to represent the players, the labor base they have that's largely black and brown. I don't know. It seems like former players kind of make sense to me, you know? He also took a lot of unnecessary shots at Nuggets players. He, for whatever reason, decided to say that Kenyon Martin had all that money and no father. It's fucked up. Carmelo's dad died when he was 2 years old. Kenyon was raised by his mom and sister, and he says that those two are his father figures. So I don't know. Kenyon Martin, you already know he's not about this. He said he was an awful and coward-ass coach, a terrible person, selfish, unhappy, miserable, the worst coach that he ever played for. Jesus. I met Kenyon Martin in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago, and let me say, that is probably the censored version of what he would say behind George Karl's back without the media there to take note and to record it. The list of former players who have 0 good things to say about George Karl, the list is long. Gary Payton, Sean Kemp, Chauncey Billups, numerous others. And George Karl still, for some reason, still tweeting about current players like John Morant. 1950s takes on John Morant. If you know, you know. When you make a list of most or least popular NBA coaches, George Karl is literally the Khaleesi of that list. No one is as unpopular as him. Not a chance, and I don't think anybody will ever make that list. Also, fun fact, George Karl accidentally spit on me in a basketball clinic. I was sitting front row, and he just loogied all over me and didn't say a goddamn word. So I personally don't like George Karl either.